John G. by Catherine Mayo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Floating Dave. John G. by Catherine Mayo. It was 9 o'clock of a wild night in December. For 48 hours it had been raining after a heavy fall of snow. Still the torrents descended, lashed by a screaming wind, and song of rushing water mingled with the cry of the gale. Each steep street of the hill town of Greensburg lay inches deep under a tearing flood. The cold was as great as cold may be while rain is falling. A night to give thanks for shelter overhead and to hug the hearth with gratitude. First Sergeant Price, at his desk in the barracks office, was honorably grinding law. Most honorably because when he had gone to take the book from the shelf in the day room, Barrack Room Ballads had smiled down upon him with a heart-aching echo of the soft, familiar East. So that of a sudden he had fairly smelt the sweet, strange, heathen smell of the temples of Tientsin, had seen the flash of a parrot's wing in the bolo-toothed Philippine jungle, and the sight and the smell on a night like this were enough to make any man lonely. Therefore it was with honor indeed that instead of dreaming off into the radiant past through the well-thumbed book of magic, he was digging between deep sheepskin covers after the key to the bar of the state on which his will was fixed. Now, a man who, being a member of the Pennsylvania State Police, aspires to qualify admission to the bar, has his work cut out for him. The calls of his regular duty, endless in number and kind, leave him no certain leisure, and few and broken are the hours that he gets for books. "Confound the Latin," grumbled the sergeant, grabbing his head with two hands. "Well, anyway, here's my night for it. Even the crooks will lie snug in weather like this." And he took a fresh hold of the poser. Suddenly, buzz, went the bell beside him, and before its voice ceased, he stood at salute in the door of the captain's office. "Sergeant," said Captain Adams with a half-turn of his desk chair, "how soon can you take to the field?" 5 minutes, sir. There's trouble over in the foundry town. The local authorities have jailed some IWW plotters. They state that a jail delivery is threatened, that the sheriff can't control it, and that they believe the mob will run amok generally and shoot up the town. Take a few men, go over and attend to it. Very well, sir. In the time that goes to saddling a horse, the detail rode into the storm. First Sergeant Price on John G. leading. John G. had belonged to the force exactly as long as had the first sergeant himself, which was from the dawn of the force's existence. And John G. is a gentleman and a soldier, every inch of him. Horse-show judges have affixed their seal to the self-evident fact by the sign of the blue ribbon. But the best proof lies in the personal knowledge of A Troop, soundly built on 12 years' brotherhood. John G. on that diluvian night was 22 years old, and still every whit as clean-limbed, alert, and plucky as his salad days had seen him. Men and horses dived into the gale as swimmers dive into a breaker. It beat their eyes shut with wind and driven water, and as they slid down the hurt-pitched city streets, the flood banked up against each planted hoof till it split in folds above the fetlock. Down in the county beyond, mud, slush, and water, clogged with chunks of frost-stricken clay, made worse and still worse going. And so they pushed on through the blackest turmoil toward the river road that should be their highway to Logan's Ferry. They reached that road at last, only to find it as lost as Atlantis under 20 feet of water. The Allegheny had overflowed her banks, and now there remained no way across short of following the stream up to Pittsburgh and so around, a detour of many miles, long and evil. "And that," said First Sergeant Price, "means getting to the party about 4 hours late. Baby talk and nonsense. By that time they might have burned the place and killed all the people in it. Let's see now. There's a railroad bridge close along here somewhere." They scouted till they found the bridge. But behold, its floor was of cross ties only, of sleepers to carry the rails, laid with wide breaks between, gaping down to the deep, dark space whose bed was the roaring river. "Nevertheless," said First Sergeant Price, whose spirits ever soar at the foolish onslaughts of trouble, "nevertheless, we're not going to ride 20 miles further for nothing. There's a railroad yard on the other side. This bridge here runs straight into it. You 2 men, go over, get a couple of good planks, and find out when the next train is due." The 2 troopers whom the sergeant indicated gave their horses to comrades and started across the trestle. For a moment, those who stayed behind could distinguish the rays of their pocket flashlights as they picked out the slimy foothold. Then the whirling night engulfed them, lights and all. The sergeant led the remainder of the detail down into the lee of an abutment to avoid the full drive of the storm. A while they stood waiting, huddled together. But the wait was not long. Presently, like a code signal spelled out on the black overhead, came a series of steady, lengthening flashes, the pocket light glancing between the sleepers as the returning messengers drew near. Scrambling up to rail level, the sergeant saw with content that his emissaries bore on their shoulders between them 2 new pine 2x12s. "No train's due till 5 o'clock in the morning," reported the first across. "Good. Now lay the planks in the middle of the track, end to end, so." The sergeant, dismounting, stood at John G.'s wise old head, stroking his muzzle, whispering into his ear. "Come along, John. It's all right, old man," he finished with a final caress. Then he led John G. to the first plank. "One of you men, walk on each side of him. Now, John." Delicately, nervously, John G. set his feet, step by step, till he had reached the center of the second plank. Then the sergeant talked to him quietly again, while 2 troopers picked up the board just quitted to lay it in advance. And so, length by length, they made the passage, the horse moving with extremest caution, shivering with full appreciation of the unaccustomed danger, yet steadied by his master's presence and by the friend on either hand. As they moved, the gale wreaked all its fury on them. It was growing colder now, and the rain, changed to sleet, stung their skin with its tiny, sharp-driven blades. The skeleton bridge held them high suspended in the very heart of the storm. Once and again a sudden, more violent gust bid fair to sweep them off their feet. Yet, slowly progressing, they made their port unharmed. Then came the next horse's turn. More than a single mount they dared not lead over at once, lest the contagious fears of one, reacting on another, produce panic. The horse that should rear or shy on that wide-meshed footing would be fairly sure to break a leg at best. So, one by one they followed over, each reaching the farther side before his successor began the transit. And so at last all stood on the opposite bank, ready to follow John G. once more as he led the way to duty. "Come along, John, old man. You know how you'd hate to find a lot of dead women and babies because we got there too late to save them. Make a pace, Johnny boy." The first sergeant was talking gently, leaning over his pommel. But John G. was listening, more from politeness than because he needed a lift. His stride was as steady as a clock. It was 3 hours after midnight on that bitter black morning as they entered the streets of the town, and the streets were as quiet, as peaceful, as empty of men as the heart of the high woods. "Where's the mob?" growled the sergeant. "Guess its mother put it to sleep," a cold, wet trooper growled back. "Well, we thought there was going to be trouble," protested the local power, roused from his featherbed. "It really did look like serious trouble, I assure you, and we could not have handled serious trouble with the means at our command. Moreover, there may easily be something yet. So, gentlemen, I am greatly relieved you have come. I can sleep in peace now that you are here. Good night. Good night." All through the remaining hours of darkness